This is the Effective Engineering Manager podcast. In today's episode, Adam and Slava will discuss techniques around effective escalation.
Welcome to the Effective Engineering Manager podcast.
Hello, Slava. Welcome. It's your time today. What would you like to talk about?
Today, I'd like to talk about how to escalate issues effectively. We are going to share what the escalations are, the impact of escalating unskillfully, and how to escalate professionally and effectively. In the end, we will provide a checklist that our listeners can use to escalate effectively.
Really good topic, and certainly one that I know I've had experiences with, I think on both sides, and it's so important because it can have such a dramatic effect, both positively or negatively. So it's not done right. It can have a huge negative effect on a team, and really demoralize people and break a lot of trust that that you've worked to build up. And it could create a lot of infighting and people becoming siloed. So I think it's an absolutely important topic to discuss. So let's talk a little bit about it. What exactly are escalations?
Yes, and so here we are going to cover one particular situation when we are having work issues with our partners, particularly struggling to get help from a horizontal partner. And this can be cross-functional partners in different teams, or it can be a partner in the same team. And we are not talking about escalating production issues. That's a completely different topic. And we're also not going to be covering interpersonal issues. It's just really work issues needing help from depending on someone and not getting that help. And what's important is that we escalate, and when we talk about escalations, is that it has to come to escalation only when all that other means to make it work with your partner were exhausted. It should be really the last resort. And escalation in general means asking for help with the issue you have from your superiors.
Yeah, I think this is a really good definition, and I like how you're separating out escalations here from, for when you absolutely need to, when it's absolutely the only course of action versus others. Because I think a true escalation and not just a gripe or just some other, political move that people make, which can really affect teams. When you need to actually escalate and when it has a purpose, I think that's what's important here in doing it the right way. So I think this is a good definition. I think this covers a really important resource for our listeners.
So, and I'd like to start with with the how to escalate effectively and professionally, but rather how not to escalate. And as usual, there are so many ways to do it wrong, and there is only one way to do it right. And I would like to cover at least some examples or provide a model for how unskillful, unprofessional escalations look like, so that we at least can know that we are doing it or someone else is doing it. So, my own experience, I've seen it so many times. It doesn't happen too often, but happened many times. Is that unskillful, unprofessional escalations invariably produce really bad results. They rarely generate the outcome that someone who escalates unskillfully is looking for. Well, first of all, what I saw is that escalations were happening or were tried to without trying to resolve it in a one-on-one conversation, right? So a person who is going to be escalated against may not even know that it's going to be happening, right? And may not even know the context, or may not even know that there's a problem, right? So another one, which I've so many times, is escalating to their bosses, or sometimes even escalating many levels up. And I've seen escalations when VPs were getting involved, SVPs getting involved, CEOs getting involved, and being included into an email with an escalation, and that results are usually horrible. Right? What happens when escalations are done unskillfully is they're not going to bring results anyway. People are going to get mad because you went over their head to their superiors or to the superiors of their superiors, and it generally means a very simple thing: anyone from the top to bottom is going to be mad at the situation. They're not going to be looking for a way to resolve it. They're going to be just pushing it. This stuff is going to roll down immediately. And the simple question is going to be asked: why the heck you guys are not keeping your stuff together? So another negative result of such unskillful escalations is if those are repeated, it leads to spoiled, sometimes completely ruined to the point of no repair relationships, work relationships, and personal relationships. It leads to grudges to be developed. And on the level when individuals or teams develop this halo, when the rest of the org thinks that they're consistently throwing other teams under the bus. And if this continues unmitigated and unmanaged over time, it can even lead to deterioration of the organization's ability to deliver on the basic obligations. It can lead to political wars and destructions of organizations, just approaching it unskillfully.
Yeah, I think with regards to the grudges, I think that's a really important thing to key into, because I have seen this happen where one person, escalates and then develops this grudge with another team, and it could be a cross-functional team, it could be whatever else, right? And okay, so you have that, but what happens is it's a domino effect, because now everybody on each of those teams becomes polarized. It's like one team against another. And then that keeps that grudge going, and then over time, the people who started the grudge may leave. They may move on to other companies and different projects, different teams, etc., right? But the team still has this culture of, oh, we never liked that other team over there, right? And so especially in an engineering organization where you're going to have a lot of turnover and you have a lot of new people coming in regularly, the first thing somebody sees when they join a team is like, oh, wow, there's animosity because there's animosity from this other team, and we're just perpetuating that. So think back to the impetus of all this. Say, oh, I'm gonna escalate. I'm gonna send this to so-and-so's manager. You don't realize it's not just about you in that moment. It's about you're setting a precedent that is going to have impact potentially for a long time after that. It could be years. And you're creating a culture of animosity. It's not about a single incident. It's not about a single grudge. It's a culture of animosity that persists. And I can't tell you how many times I've come into organizations I've joined or other parts of an organization I've been part of, and you can kind of feel right away that there's this culture of animosity. It may not necessarily be against your team, but you're seeing something there. And if it's there with one team, there's certainly an opportunity to them to repeat that against other teams and build this real negative silo around themselves. So I think what you bring up here is an extremely important point, and how to escalate right in the first place could change that for a long period of time. So it has dramatic effects. So Slava, how do we escalate professionally in a way that brings positive, meaningful results?
Good question. And first, and the most important thing is that you really have to escalate only if you don't have any other option and all other options were exhausted. Number one. And number two, if the matter that you would like to escalate has a material negative impact on what you're doing, what your team is delivering, or it has an impact on the customer or on the company, right? So if it's largely emotional content and you're just unhappy about something, it's a good sign that you need to cool down, sleep on it, sleep more, then take next steps. And the next steps are about professional escalation. And by the way, if you realize that uh, escalation is the last resort, oftentimes or sometimes it's possible to move things around to accommodate the lack of help you need, right? If it's a small thing and you just maybe move your schedule a bit, and that's all needs to be done, maybe you don't even need to escalate. Essentially, it's just really have to have a material impact on the deliverables, the company, and the customer. So, what is the correct first step? And the correct first step in this escalation model, I call it a Christmas tree escalation model because it looks like a Christmas tree, is to start with a one-on-one. Set up a one-on-one. Prepare, cool down if you feel stressed or excited. Don't do it. Let yourself to chill, to relax, and then have that professional conversation. Set up a face-to-face one-on-one. These days, there's a good chance it's going to be a remote one-on-one or a teleconference. And then ask for help. Don't accuse them of missing, not providing you help. Don't accuse them. Just ask for help. And usually you can preface the conversation with a statement that goes something like, "I need your help with something." And then you describe, "Hey, my project depends on a few action items on your side. Do folks think you can help me with that? If yes, what would be the reasonable timeline?" Right? So you need to describe how getting what you need from your partner will help you, the project, the team, the customer, the company. So they need to understand what is being asked for and why it's being asked for. And they need to understand it's not about just you wanting something. It's actually something that materially impacts what we as an integrated team do, right? And you can ask if they could prioritize and what's the reasonable timeline, and listen, understand their point of view, understand, what is going on, understand their response. And if you get a yes, or if you get, "Hey, I need to think about it," is great because it's a step forward and you can continue the conversation, whatever the timeline is. Now, what do you do if you get a no? And there are many reasons to get a no, right? People are busy, they're overloaded, sometimes they don't want to help, who knows, right? But you need to be aware of the message you receive throughout this conversation, right? Listen, don't prejudge. Enter this conversation with an open mind. Now, if you do get a no, do repeat the impact of not getting the help that you're looking for on your deliverables, on the team, on the company, on the customer, and then say that, "Hey, I do understand that you cannot help," and then you need to say that that you are sorry that it's gotten to this stage, but because of the impact or negative impact on the deliverables, that you will have to escalate to your boss, and that so that your boss can work through this issue on their level. And this has to be said so that they understand that you are not pushing it through, their chain of command or even higher, and everyone is going to get mad. They need to have a clear understanding that they are going to be working with your boss, right? And then in the end of the meeting, you really have to thank them for finding time to talk to you. And once this one-on-one meeting is over, you have to send a brief email just with a brief summary that you guys met, that you presented the need for help, the negative impact on the deliverables, and that you do understand that your counterpart doesn't seem to be able to help. And I think the wording it doesn't seem to be able to help is important, because even we often think that we understood what was said, but it's oftentimes a perception, right? So be unsure in your communication, okay? Don't say you did, I did, right? And then say that, hey, it's kind of that you are sorry but you'll have to work with your boss. You may not even have to say escalate. You may say, I'm going to have to work with my boss to resolve this, and that you are hoping that this thing is going to get resolved. And that's basically the escalation model.
I think that's you break this down very well. The one point that I think is so key here is when you're giving the person an opportunity. So the one-on-one is a polite, professional way to have a discussion, but you're giving that person an opportunity to say, no, I can't help, right? You're giving them an opportunity to say, I can't change this, I can't do this. Maybe they don't want to, whatever the situation is, you're giving them the opportunity, and you're being very clear that, okay, I'm going to escalate not because you're being obstinate about something, but because I am responsible for X, and my boss and my chain of command has the ability and responsibility of ownership to be able to make a change that may help us here. And so you're completely divorcing yourself from the personal issues, right, that might be assumed, right? Because when you send a letter of escalation without any context and discussion, first thing people are going to think is it's a personal attack, right? Or people are going to feel hurt by it. But this takes that out of the equation. And I think more importantly, it takes away this kind of persisted animosity between two people or between two teams, right? I've had situations where people escalated, to me, and I haven't known about it. You feel horrible. Like, why is this person doing this? What's going on here? And you think it's personal, and you think it's the worst thing. I've also had situations like this where someone has come to me and said, listen, I need your help with this, just like you say. Can you help with this? I say, I'm not in a position to do that, and I'm also not direct. I'm not able to make that decision because I would, my boss wouldn't like that, et cetera. So I'm going to defer to my boss. And and then that person says, okay, I'll have my boss, escalate and take it through that chain of command. And then it's just completely diffuses the possible situation of being really animus. And so that, I think, is a really key thing. Just that alone, giving that person an opportunity, having that discussion, but then also stating, hey, I'm going to escalate this because, and I'm going to allow my boss to make that decision because he or she is in a better position to do that than we are right here. Perfectly understandable. And it's, by the way, this is the same thing on the positive side too. When somebody on your team comes to you and says, this other team, I can't seem to really get them to do work for us. So they come to me and say, okay, well, I'm in a position where I have a relationship with their manager, and I can talk to them, and I can get things done. So when you have a good relationship, you can actually affect things downstream in the same kind of manner that you would need to escalate in this type of situation. So I think this model is really good, and I think it's a really healthy model.
Yep, good stuff. So what's next? So you communicated, they're on the same page, it's all professional, devoid of any emotional content. So the next step in this model is to reach out to your boss as planned, and you have to start with a face-to-face one-on-one, or again, remote face-to-face. But it is super important to do it over one-on-one. Do not use email or Slack or Teams or whatever the messaging system you are using, right? It's super critical to have a one-on-one with your boss, because if you start with an email, the moment you send the email, the control over your message is gone, right? And your boss may misunderstand, they may be having a bad day, they may miss it, there's lots of things might happen that can take this the model in the wrong direction. So fundamentally, the next step is to schedule a one-on-one with your boss, explain the situation, the need for help, the impact on deliverables, the negative impact on deliverables, on the company, on the customer, on the team. Describe what you have done to make things work, how you reached out, set up one-on-ones, asked for help, explain the same thing, and they're still not supporting it, right? And then you have to clearly ask your boss to help on their level. And it literally sounds like this: hey boss, can you help me with this on your level, right? And then you're going to get yes, and then they're going to help. And if you're going to get no, then it's a no too, and then the issue may even die before it started. So once you got a yes, you need to send a follow-up email to your boss with exactly the same things we just talked about. the situation, the impact, what you have done to make it work, and that you're asking your boss to help on their level, right? And it's important to mention in your communications on their level, because if it ever somehow graduates to your boss reaching down into the partner org, and I maybe saw it only once, because they think they would try to make other teams better if they're not very experienced managers. It's unlikely, but at least if it does happen, you have a clear statement of resolve it on your level, right? And you might even ask, hey, can you work with your counterpart on this? That would help a lot, right? Mentioning their counterpart could be even a stronger message indicating that you're requesting to work on horizontally on their level. And that's a sort of a second step. There's a third one, but I'm curious what you think about this one.
Yeah, I agree. I think, I think having this level of consistency with how you speak to laterals or people below you or whoever is escalating or you need to escalate with, and having that same consistency in how you approach communications with your boss, for the matter, I think is really important. I think that really lends to your professionalism. People can see the consistency. If you have a boss who's very aware, they'll see that, oh, wow, you took the time to have this one-on-one with this other person. You're presenting the same to me in a similar context and giving me an opportunity to respond and giving me the digest. I think that's really professional. And I think professionalism and consistency, are two of the key things that I think any manager looks for in their directs, and especially when building trust and whether it's a legitimate thing that person is coming up with, right? How many times have we had people on our team come to us and try to escalate, and it's just because they're griping about something. So sometimes you let them gripe, sometimes you put the kibosh to it, sometimes, whatever. But the difference between that and between a situation that was done very professionally, very well thought through and executed, and very consistent, I think usually speaks volumes. So great second point. What do you have as your third point here?
So at this point, we made all the effort to resolve whatever the issues are. We have horizontally, professionally, didn't work out, and we escalated to our boss. So in the last step, even though formally the escalation as an event or as an action item occurred, it's still on you to make things work. And at this point, what you owe to yourself and to your boss is to start pinging them regularly on the progress of your request for help. It really depends on what the timeline of the issue. If it's something 3 months out, you can ping your boss once every 2 weeks. And if this is something that requires next day outcome, you might be pinging your boss once a day, right? But you need to reach out to your boss, whatever the reasonable amount of time you feel, and just ask, hey boss, I just wanted to check in. How's the thing going about my request for help with that thing, right? Just very lightweight. And now with escalation goes, what if your boss just continues to drag their feet and nothing happens? Well, this on its own may be indicating that your escalation basically stalled or died and nothing is going to happen. Then you might end up dropping it and working around it. Do not push your boss too hard, right? Because otherwise you may end up with unintended consequences. So that's basically, this concludes the escalation model as it is. A personal relationship, one-on-one communication, escalation to a boss, and tracking the progress until there's a result, or you receive a direct or indirect indication that it's not going anywhere, right? Now that's the model. But what's also important is what is that you do as a boss. It's sort of like a snake eating its own tail. It's recursive, right? Because you are going to be escalated into as a manager. Your direct reports who are following this model will be escalating to you. And this model repeats itself, right? So let's say you direct escalated something to you, and you apply this Christmas tree escalation model, right? You work it first. You try to work it out horizontally. You reach out to your counterpart. describe the situation, describe the need for help, describe the impact of not receiving that help, and ask them if they can help on their level to make it work, right? And if it doesn't work, the thing repeats, right? You say, hey, I'll have to push it up. I really don't want to do it, but it's important, and it's really just a professional thing, and I just need to escalate, and then you escalate to your boss, and hopefully that model continues. And hopefully it's not going to get to the top dog, but if it does, well, it is what it is.
Yeah, I think, again, really, really important points. I think it's important to recognize there is a sequence here that should be followed, and respecting that sequence is good. One other thing I would add to this is your boss is only going to be motivated to act if it's serving their interest in some way, right? I'm not talking about personal interest or anything like that. I'm talking if they see that it's a legitimate issue that is going to affect the ability of their organization to be productive or not, right? That is going to be their barometer. They may still listen to you, they may still agree with you, but getting them to act and prioritize it is really going to be driven by the impact on the organization, right? I've had plenty of situations where I've raised things to my boss. They've totally agreed about it, but they've sat on it because while it was important, it may not be the right priority for now, and maybe there's other fires going on which they need to be attentive to, or they're waiting for those to calm down before dealing with this, right? So your boss always has more information than you do, and you need to respect that. On the flip side, if your boss does jump on it, right, then you know it's obviously something really legitimate, and they believe that it's a problem. But they are also only going to go so far with it as well. They are going to they may even have a meeting with their counterpart. They may even get the team together. But they are basically just going to calibrate, right? They're just going to use this time to say, hey, guys, this is what we need to do. Here's the decision, et cetera. Then it's back on you again to not only track that, but to make sure it's implemented. Your boss is never going to come to you and say, Slava, I agree with you. Here's the action. Go do it. And track on it. He or she is going to come in there and provide the assistance that you're asking for. If they're a good manager and they're working very efficiently, they're not going to get too deep in this situation, right? They're going to come in, they'll make a decision, they'll do what they need to do to interface, but it's going to be up to you to drive it. And it's going to be up to you and your counterpart at your level to make it work, period. And you're going to be measured on how well you make that work, right? So going back to your step one, setting up that one-on-one and building those good relationships, that's going to come back to you as a very important thing, because if you've already soured that relationship, it's going to be very hard once you get the answer that you want from your boss to make that happen, right? And then what's going to happen is your boss is going to see that, you're not able to drive this to completion, or if there's still issues there, and they're going to, I'm not saying they necessarily would question your ability, but certainly they're going to, the next time you bring an issue up, they may not be as ready to jump on it. And so I think that's why these set of steps are so critical, because you're putting yourself in the best position for the moment and for the future. So Slava, with that, what else do you think we need to do to make escalations work effectively?
Yes. Well, first, good thoughts on one-on-ones and building relationships. And if you have strong relationships already, you may never have to escalate. People will be helpful just because you guys owe it to each other. So what we can do to make it work is to train your team on the effective escalations, just like we described. And you need to train and make sure that the entire team got trained, not just your direct reports. And I've tried before. I've tried to ask to cascade the training, and it gets implemented maybe 10% of times. I think in important things such as cross-functional collaboration, which is what this is about, doing a full-blown all-hands training, and maybe a most effective way of doing it. And the second, on top of training, is to make training on the escalation, on effective escalations, a part of the onboarding process. Don't assume that they know what they're doing. Just give them the training from get-go, because there is always a danger that you hired someone, they seem to be great, and yet there are gaps in the way they work across the teams. So just blindly apply the training and be happy later.
Slava, so one question here. What do we do if we do the right thing, but other teams don't, and they're not mature enough or capable to understand how to effectively escalate?
Yeah, it's a good question, and there's a good chance it's going to happen because not everyone practices effective management, effective engineering management, or sometimes people just don't want to do it, or maybe they just set up the way it is. It doesn't necessarily have to be malicious, but lack of skill will always be there. And if other teams escalate across over your head to your superiors, over your superiors, many levels up, and it ends up in a heartache for everyone concerned, I suggest to take the high road. Continue to practice the effective escalations, behave professionally, and perform professionally. And if you feel strong about it, or if it hurts the team materially, you can escalate unskillful escalations as well on your level. You can ask for help from your counterpart, just like apply the same escalation model to unskillful escalations, right? Reach out to them, describe the effective escalation model you are practicing, describe the benefits of working it out horizontally first and then using their chain of command and not yours, and ask for help. Ask if they would like to practice the same, and then same applies with a variation. If that doesn't work, or if that approach doesn't take, you can go to your boss. I'm not saying that you should, but you can go to your boss. You can follow this model almost to the letter with one exception. Go to a boss, describe the situation to a boss, describe what you have done to make it work between you and your partner, but do tell your boss that this is for their information only, and that no action is needed. Do not ask for help on their level, because that would be asking to change managerial behaviors of other teams that are outside of their ability to influence things. And it's really a bad idea trying to change other teams, right? This is basically to inform them that this is happening, that you are working on it or trying to work through it, but be very clear that you are not asking them to act on it.
Thank you, Slava. Really good deep dive onto effective escalation. So to wrap up, can you give our listeners a checklist for escalating work issues professionally and effectively?
Yes, here's the checklist. This is how you apply the effective escalation model. First, try to resolve the issue horizontally with your counterpart without involving superiors. If that didn't work, escalate to your boss only and ask for help. And third, keep checking on the progress with your boss.
Thank you, Slava. This is great stuff.
Always. And more good stuff is coming. I encourage our listeners to share their feedback and suggestions on more topics. And we can be found on the web on effectiveem.com. And our email is contact@effectiveem.com.